How'd you get inside that cloud?
Also, how could you eat an entire box of Pop-Tarts and still be this hungry?
This drink, I like it.
I know, it's great, right?
Another!
Sorry, Izzy, little accident.
What's that?
It was delicious. I want another.
Well, you could have just said so.
I just did.
No, I mean, ask nicely.
I meant no disrespect.
All right, well, no more smashing. Deal?
I have my word.
Good.
Well, hey, two people from two different worlds trying to communicate with each other. And that's what that clip is about. Let me see if I can adjust this. This is really high. Two people from two different worlds and two different genders, too. So that throws a little wrench in there. Well, good morning and welcome to the journey. I'm so glad that you've come and that you're here with us today on a bright summer Sunday morning when you could be doing something else. You're here, so I'm just so thankful for that, and want to appreciate you for that. As well as if you're here for the first time, I want to say thank you for coming. We want you to know that wherever you're at on your spiritual journey, whatever you believe, wherever you've been, doesn't matter. We're glad that you're here, and we hope you enjoy it and that you'd come back and join and be part of what's happening here. Well, today we get to jump into part 5 of our 6-part series called Fighting for Your Family. What an amazing gift we have in this concept, in this institution called family. You know, God could have designed us like bugs or something where we're mass-produced, and once we hatch out of our eggs, we're like out on our own, all alone, to fend for the world, right? He could have done that, no concept of family, or he could have made us like the black widow spider, where the female kills and eats the male after mating. I don't know if I like that option. Talk about a dysfunctional family there. But instead, God has given us such a privilege in this thing called family, and we don't have very many chances at it in this life. There's a season to parenting that begins and ends. And there's a season to childhood that begins and ends. Teens and students, you're here today. You don't have U-turn today, but you're here today. You have a few years left of this stage in your family. Make the most of it. And like any good thing in this world, like any gift or treasure or valuable thing, family needs to be fought for and defended, because there are forces in this world out to destroy what's good, and often those forces are our very selves. So we have been looking at some very powerful, effective, and strategic weapons for us to use in fighting for our families, not fighting against our families, but fighting for our families, all right? Today we're going to look at something that we can all use improvement in. And it doesn't matter your background or how long you've been a Christian, if you are one, or how spiritual you think you are. We all stand to intentionally improve in this area. And so the title of the talk this morning is Improving the Way We Communicate. That's where we got that clip from Thor, because they had some work to do in improving their communication. Is everyone here today? And I know there's a lot of people gone because it's summer, but thank you, Mitch. How was that In-N-Out burger, by the way? Wonderful? Yes, last week he got to have an In-N-Out burger, and I was just drooling over the text that he sent me. Anyway, I'm not jealous or anything. I'm happy for you. Yes, yeah. Yeah, so back to what we're talking about. But how often have we ever heard or felt things like this? I just don't understand him, or I just don't get her. Right? Or it's like we speak two different languages in our home. There's man talk, and there's woman talk, and there's baby talk, and there's teen talk, and we just can't seem to communicate. Has anyone ever heard or felt that way before in your family? Some of us are honest. Yes. Others feel like, really, honey? You feel that way? No, anyway, but I have as well, and it can be so discouraging. Someone once said it's easy to talk, but it's difficult to communicate. And it's so true. As I pointed out a few weeks ago, our culture is so upside down in so many things sometimes. Besides God, there is nothing more important in this world than family. I totally believe that. Nothing at all. Yet we give everything else the time and attention that our families need and deserve. I'm telling you, I'm speaking to myself, okay? But our culture tells us that career is everything, for example. So we train hard and we pour everything we have to get educated and prepared for a job that we may not have 5 years later. But the priority we give to family or growing in family skills gets tabled. We love our families and we hate our jobs, but we spend more time with the job that we hate than with the family we love. And it's crazy. Has anyone ever felt that way? It's like, what is going on? And I know we have to provide to pay bills and so forth, but where is that line? So communication, what we're going to talk about today, is powerful. Communication is so powerful in any and every arena in this life, in the business world and in the family. Our world moves forward, gets stuck, or breaks down depending on the effectiveness of communication. It just does. It's that powerful. Now imagine a world with no communication. Okay, what if communication were not possible? What if there were no way to get someone to understand what you want to communicate? No texting, no advertisements, no radio, no cell phones, no voices, no emails, no Facebook, OMG, no languages, no books, no dirty looks, nothing, okay? Imagine that. The world would be chaos, right? Imagine trying to communicate. It would be like Charlie Brown's famous school teacher. Wah, 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 wah. And you're like, what? I can't understand you. What are you trying to say to me? My brother, a long time ago, back in 1997, before Hong Kong was fully given over back to China by England. It was still a territory of England. But back in 1997, my brother went to Hong Kong to smuggle Bibles into mainland China. And so he was with Youth with a Mission. He smuggled Bibles, and he would duct tape and everything, strap Bibles all over his body, and then put clothes on and jacket and so forth, and in his luggage. And so he'd go across the border into mainland China, and one or two times, I can't remember, he got caught by the authorities. And so one of the things they told him is that in China, the officials there really want to do a good job speaking English, and so they're very insecure with their English language. And so when they brought him into the interrogation room, and they're chewing him out, and what are these what are these for? What are you doing with these? And he's all, what? I can't understand you. I can't understand. What are you saying? He was totally just playing it up. Like, what do you, I can't your English isn't very good. What are you saying? And they were getting frustrated and really insecure and everything. And so finally they just deported him, and then he went back, and so forth. But anyway, communication is so incredibly powerful. Through the way we communicate, we have the power to build someone up and catapult them forward into a vibrant future. And we have the power to cut someone off at the knees and destroy their life with our words. All by the way that we communicate. Relationships are built on communication. You can't have a relationship without communication. It's how we connect with each other. We communicate. In fact, the truth and principles in this message apply to any relationship, not just marriage and family. But little, no, or bad communication will cause any relationship to go south or become non-existent, unclear, unhealthy, toxic, or infrequent communication will shut a marriage down. Like clogged arteries will stop a heart from beating. If you're experiencing fighting, loneliness, resentment, anger in your home, chances are you have some communication problems. But there's hope. God is near and he wants to help you. So we're going to look at this passage from the Bible that has to do with communication, and we'll look at what to do, not to do, and then to do in trying to improve the way we communicate. So do, don't do, and do is what we're going to look at today. The context of this passage we're going to look at is something that's really cool, by the way, about the writers of Scripture is that they are for you. They are for you. They're for your family because God is for you and God is for your family. And so the context of this is basically any relationship and any and living in a way that honors God that works, and it definitely applies to the family as well. So let's look at this passage out of Ephesians, the New Testament book of Ephesians. It says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen." And we could probably all just stop right here and go home and think, wow, I have just totally messed up my whole life. Because, when we really look at how we're living up to this passage of the Bible, okay? So we're going to look at this, okay? Do, don't do, and do, okay? Now, the first thing that Paul says is not to let any wholesome talk to come out of your mouths. But before we look at that one, I want to first see how the first sentence talks about restraint, okay? Restraining what comes out of our mouths. Close it if you need to, okay? Close it. And in fact, another passage out of James says this, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. So if you want to take notes in that green sheet that's in your handout, you can go ahead. The first one is do, be quiet and listen, okay? Do be quiet and listen. That's the first thing in improving the way we communicate. And it's so hard to do that because we always want to talk, right? And some people want to talk more than others, but we need to be quiet. So the next point here is keep your mouth shut and your ears open, okay? And we all know this, don't we? We've all heard this before, but we can all use improvement in this area. Like that old saying, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth so we can listen twice as much as we speak, right? And but we don't do that so often. Here's a picture of what not to do because it doesn't work in a marriage or family. Next picture here. That's communication, the key to a happy marriage. Do you guys get that picture there? Yeah, okay. Good. You guys are checked out. Okay, anyway, but it's supposed to be really funny. But so there we go. Being quiet and listening is such a powerful tool in communication. I found that the times that I shut my trap and listen, communication flows and relationships get built. When people come to me for counseling or advice, the first thing that I do is listen. Okay? I may ask a few questions, but then I spend a large amount of time listening to people as they come and talk. People appreciate that. It doesn't matter who or what they're going through or what they're like. I've had great conversations with people who are nothing like me in so many ways. Atheists, activists, non-religious people from other countries, even a gay Satanist, okay? And I'm not calling him gay because he's a Satanist. I'm not calling him a Satanist because he's gay, all right? He was a young man who was very loudly and proudly both, okay? Not a combo that you encounter too often. But each of those conversations were meaningful and respectful, largely because I chose to listen instead of just spout out whatever I thought, whatever came out of my mind, okay? Even as parents, there are times when I'm not in the mood for listening. I don't know if you can relate to that, but I'm just not in the mood for listening, especially when one of my kids comes in crying or whining because they're hurt or got into a fight with a brother or sister. But when I fight against my natural tendency to say, suck it up, kid, and be quiet, okay, because I've said that before, but when I fight that and I'm quiet and instead say, tell me about it, relationship opens up. A week or so ago, it's always that, just like that video clip we showed last week with the whining and the crying and the drink of water and all that, we saw that getting our 2 youngest girls down to sleep at night, there's always something going on, and so they're upstairs and I hear one of them just, wah! I'm like, all right, I'm going upstairs. I'm going to put the hammer down, and so I go upstairs but I didn't do that. I just said, tell me what's wrong. And it was like, because they saw me walk in, they're like, right, and so I walk in and I said, why don't you tell me what's going on? And all of a sudden it was like the mood just kind of quieted down. I got to talk to them. They went to sleep right after that. I mean, it was really cool. I'm like, I got to do this more often. This is great, But listening it opens things up. Now, I don't know what everyone here thinks about God or the Bible and stuff, but the Bible really does have a lot of good things to say. Okay, it's at least as good as a newspaper or the magazine you like to read. All right, it's actually better than that. But so let's look at what this says here in Ecclesiastes. It says, "There is a time for everything, a time to be silent, and a time to speak." The trouble is that for a lot of people, especially in our digital texting, emailing, Facebook, blogging culture, they think it's always the time to speak. Always, whether people want to hear it or not. And it's funny how some people will Facebook everything in their life. Dinner out with the family at Chili's. Kids won't stop whining at Chili's. Going to the bathroom now at Chili's. And it's like I'm looking at that on Facebook thinking, wow, you need a life. I don't know. But anyway, here's what Proverbs says. It says this. Of course, some of you think that when I'm watching a 49 football game. I'm like commenting to every play on Facebook. But okay, so Proverbs says this. Spouting off before listening to the facts is both shameful and foolish. The story, some of you heard this story before, but former President Franklin Delano Roosevelt got tired of smiling that big smile and saying the usual things at all those White House receptions. So one evening he decided to find out whether anybody was paying attention to what he was saying. This is the president, right? And as each person came up to him with an extended hand, he flashed that big smile and said, "I murdered my grandmother this morning." And people would automatically respond with comments like, "How lovely," or "Just continue with your great work." Nobody listened to what he was saying except for one foreign diplomat. When the president said, "I murdered my grandmother this morning," the diplomat replied softly, "I'm sure she had it coming to her." Oh, I was going to make a comment on that, but listening, it's not only about keeping your mouth shut, but also your ears open. And students, listen to your siblings, listen to your parents. Parents, listen to your teens. If we want to get better at communication in our marriages and our families, we have to become good listeners. Get a hearing aid if you need one. Okay. The next point here is listening communicates value, because it does. It says, "You're important to me. I value you. What you have to say and how you feel is important, even more important than the answer that I want to give you," right? If you just quiet down and listen. Here's another passage in Scripture. It says, "Fools have no interest in understanding. They only want to air their own opinions." If you show your spouse or kids value by listening and being a good listener daily, you will build them up and you will gain their trust. Your communication will improve. Relationship will grow. You guys want to be around each other more. In turn, the other person will want to hear you as well. Someone said this: good listeners are not only popular everywhere, but after a while they actually know something. All right? And it's kind of true. Listening is, in order to acknowledge and validate things, is so important. Men, remember from a few weeks ago when we were talking about this, if your wife shares a problem, the problem isn't the problem. How she feels about the problem is the problem, and she doesn't want you to fix how she feels, okay? She wants you to listen and validate how she feels. How many of us will just stare blankly and just nod our heads, right, while our minds are somewhere else? Anyone ever do that before? Oh, totally, But you can't fake listening. I've tried. Wendy knows when I'm not listening. My kids know when I'm not listening. In fact, pretending to listen will devalue the other person, especially if it happens on a regular basis. This next point, listening helps to create a safe environment for communication. So many family members don't communicate what really matters to them because it's not safe to do so. They know they won't be heard or understood, or they think they'll be ridiculed or demeaned or criticized or rejected or yelled at or something. And so it's not safe. Well, I can't tell my husband that. He'll flip. There'll be one more reason for him to not love me. Well, I can't tell my wife that. She'll just get defensive and tell me I'm wrong. Make me feel like a failure. Give her one more reason to disrespect me. Well, I can't tell my dad that. It'll give him one more reason to shoot me. Whatever. But those things go through our minds. If a family member doesn't communicate with you, it could very well be because he or she doesn't feel safe with you. They might feel judged, belittled, or fearful of your response. Dad just barks at me. Mom just cries. My son just withdraws. It's all unsafe when we don't listen. Becoming a good listener that values people will help create a safe environment for communication. Your spouse will trust you with the simple things and the deep things in their life. So do learn to listen. Become a good listener. Improve the way you communicate through listening. So we looked at the do. Do be quiet and listen. Now let's look at the don't. Don't be rude or rotten. Okay? Don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths. The Greek word for the original language for that word unwholesome means rotten, decayed, no good, corrupted. Okay? Kind of like the smell of someone burping up a Costco hot dog. It's not attractive. It's rotten. It's like gut rot. Just, ugh. Okay? Anyone ever do that? You ever smell that? Yeah, some of you are like, I'm so embarrassed. Okay? But we don't eat things that are rotten or spoiled because they're bad for us. They give us a tummy ache or worse. And some things, the same thing with rotten and unwholesome communication. It's bad for those who have to eat it, and it's bad for the relationship. So let's look at this next point. Avoid unwholesome communication because it doesn't work. Some people communicate with as much tact and gentleness as a battleship, right? Others are like a submarine. You dive for cover and fire a torpedo later. Boom. But though it's tough for most people, for any number of reasons. It could be the way someone was brought up. It could be a family with rotten communication skills. Maybe it's stress at work, or the way you're treated by employees or talked to on the job, or the fact that your dad calls everyone an idiot when he's driving. I don't know. But Wendy and I, we sold our house in Kuna and just moved out this week. We've been looking for a house here in Boise to be closer to the journey, but we've come up empty so far. And between this and other things going on, it's been a really, really stressful time in our lives, especially mine. So my tone and my communication has been heated and short, at times with my family. Not the most wholesome, not all that good, and so I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm speaking on this today, right? And I felt terrible. But, I understand that whatever different things in life we go through, it makes it difficult to communicate the way we should. Isn't that true? And not be rotten. I think my wife and my daughters and my son could probably say, yeah, you've been rotten a couple of times, Dad. But I'm thankful that they forgive. But anyway, we all have habits that need to be broken. So let's look at a few of these habits. Yelling. Okay? Yelling doesn't work. It only drives the other person further away. They feel unsafe, yet somehow we believe that we just talk louder and more passionately, like in the movies, then we'll be heard or respected, right? That doesn't work. Swearing. It never works. Okay? How many of us ever think, well, if he cusses at me, then I'll listen because that'll show me he's right. Right? I mean, nobody ever thinks that. I feel so loved when she calls me foul things. I mean, it does wonders for our relationship. It doesn't work. Okay, and here's something else that doesn't work. Blaming. I have a hard time with that sometimes, right? But, well, if I just convince her that everything is all her fault, then she'll finally appreciate the brilliance of the man that she married. Deception is what that is. The blame game never works. Here's another thing that doesn't work. Put downs. Put downs don't work. If you have a habit of putting down your husband or wife and then wonder why you don't feel close to him or her, something's just not right in your thinking. Okay? It's rotten. Silence doesn't work. Now, this is not the silence because you're listening or in awe of the magnificent beauty of the person in front of you. This is the silence that communicates anger or communicates that you don't care or whatever that might be. Okay, it doesn't work. Defensiveness doesn't work. You're so defensive. I am not. Anyway. Invalidating doesn't work. Well, you shouldn't feel that way. What a dumb idea. Those kinds of things don't work in communication. Manipulation. It's often in the form of playing the victim in order to control the other person so you can get what you want. Okay? That's rotten. Kids do that because they haven't matured yet. And then we end up doing that when we're adults because we haven't matured yet. By the way, speaking of kids, don't whine. It's complaining through a small hole. Anyway, so interrupting doesn't work. It's disrespectful, especially if you're a person who believes that conversations should operate by taking turns, It's my turn to speak, now it's your turn to speak. Now it's my turn to speak, now it's your turn to speak. I understand there are people who think, they think out loud. They're think out loud communicators who view conversation as a group activity. Just jump on in and join the fun whenever you want to. But interrupting. Always, never statements. They never work. Always. Okay. Sarcasm in anger. Well, that was a smart thing to do. Doesn't work. Name calling. Doesn't work. Pig, jerk, bum, just like your mother. Fill in the blank. I'm sure we've come up with some good ones in that one. Here's some things that Paul said. But now you must rid yourselves of all such things as these: anger, rage, malice, slander, and filthy language from your lips. Clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Something else to avoid, bless you, is telling lies. Telling lies. Of course, the politically correct term is misleading, right? Or telling untruths. It's like, it's a lie. Okay? Don't be a politician. Anyway, but lying never works. This ought to be a given, but it happens so often in families. It kills trust like nothing else. If you're a husband, don't lie to your wife. If you're a wife, don't lie to your husband. If you're a child, a teen, don't lie to your parents. Don't lie to each other. Okay? That will destroy trust faster than anything else. And communication will just break down. If you want to fight for your family, then tell the truth. Just tell the truth. That, of course, means that we should probably, live in such a way that we have nothing to hide, right? Well, there's another whole point that we haven't discussed yet. Live by the truth. Don't lie. It doesn't help anything or anybody. It just hurts. It really does. Proverbs says a deceitful tongue crushes the spirit. And how many of us have been crushed because someone that we love and care about has lied to us? It matters. In this world, it's just a white lie. It's just, just kind of fudge it here and there. It's not, it's not good. But any of these things will not improve your communication. They will only cause your relationship to digress, especially if any of these things are patterns. Don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, Paul says. Don't be rude or rotten. And this applies to everyone if you believe your family is worth fighting for. So, do be quiet and listen. Don't be rude and rotten. And last one, do learn to build up in how you communicate. See, communication skills can be learned. I know some people are rough around the edges and so forth. They can be learned. Everyone can learn communication skills. Let's look at this again. Do not let unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. So, this next point, communicate or speak in a way that encourages. Okay? Now, encourage in the right things, not in the wrong things. I tend to be someone who likes to encourage people in the wrong things sometimes. Back when we were in Sisters, living there, we had an acre that we were living on, and I built this huge tree house for my kids. It was amazing. You still remember it? And up on the we had a swing set, the whole thing, but on this platform, the platform was 8 feet high, tree house on top of that, and we had a zip line that went from there down about 40, 50 feet across the yard, down to where you zip down the other end. And it was fun. My kids loved it. My parents came over, and my dad's not the most athletic. And I said, Dad, you got to try it. No, I don't want to try it. Come on, try it. No, I don't want to try it. I was encouraging him. It's in the wrong thing. So he goes, okay, I'll go try it. So he gets up there, and that was a mistake. So he got on it, and he hung on for about the first 10 or 15 feet, and then couldn't hang on any longer and let go. And felt kind of bad, but it was a little funny. So anyway, but speak in a way that encourages in a good way, okay? This actually takes practice and intentionality. Being an encourager doesn't come naturally to most people. It doesn't. Oftentimes people don't think about building someone else up, or we're afraid of over-encouraging because we don't want someone to get a big head or whatever it is. Sometimes we're so jealous of the other person that we just can't find encouraging things to say, and that's really a sad place to be in life. But talk about self-centeredness if we can't encourage somebody. Still, other times we don't think about it, or it feels awkward to encourage someone, even your spouse or kids or parents. Students, you can encourage your parents with your words, and it will mean a lot to them. But, when I think about encouraging words, I think about things like this: talking kindly, gentleness, strength, empowerment, compliments that are true, not manufactured. People need to hear these things. Paul says this is a New Living Translation: let everything you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. So Levi was his name, the gay Satanist that I mentioned earlier. Young guy with tattoos all over his body, dressed in all black with a Grim Reaper t-shirt that I met up at Barnes & Noble. Mohawk, pentagram around his neck, occultic goat head rings, on his fingers. And he was reading a book called Satan Speaks. And I'm sitting there, oh. Kind of what do you do? And so I kid you not. But after I initiated a conversation with him, I spoke kindly to him. I didn't say, hey, dude, you look dumb, or is it Halloween today? None of those snide comments. I looked at him in the eyes, and when appropriate, I tried to encourage him. For example, I started asking him about his goals. Whether he wants to marriage and a family. His response was that he's gay. That doesn't stop some people. That he's a loner. That doesn't like people. Most people don't like him or talking to him. And I responded by telling him, I said, I think you're enjoyable to talk to. And you know what he did? He just kind of took back. He softened up, got a little teary-eyed, and he said, nobody, even his Christian parents, had ever told him that before. And we talked for about 2 hours, just about life and about what he believes and so forth. And it was a fantastic time. I never saw him again, but it made a difference in his life. We need to purpose to speak in a way that encourages and builds people up. Give focused attention. Hold your spouse's or your kids' hands. Look them tenderly in the eyes. Smile once in a while. Those things are encouraging. Speak kindly and gently. Flirt sometimes with your spouse. It's okay. Not with someone else, with your spouse, okay? Respond to each other. Don't react. The difference between responding and reacting is about 3 seconds. I like what someone said, a closed mouth gathers no feet. Learn to encourage each other. Encouragement doesn't mean flattery. but to build someone up. Build someone up doesn't mean puff someone up. And this next point is speak in a way that strengthens. Okay? There are times when hard things have to be said. We all know that. When it's like, oh my goodness, I've got to correct somebody, or I've got to say this hard thing, or whatever it might be, and it's not going to be fun. The problem is that we either say those things in a way that tears someone down, or we just avoid the conversation and tell other people about the problem, that someone else needs to hear about. Does it make sense? We talk about them instead of to them. And Christians often call this prayer requests. We need to pray for my friend, or my husband, or my kid, right? Maybe God will intervene and show them how wrong they are. Probably God wants to intervene through you, right? He wants you to speak to it. You do it. Scripture talks about speaking the truth in love, in a loving way, in a way that strengthens. Because truth already can hurt. Don't let the way you speak truth hurt. Improving communication means learning to strengthen those we have a relationship with. Believe the best, not the worst. Look to strengthen others and who they are, the substance of what they're made of. Be truthful and loving. And this last point is communicate love. Communicate love. If you love someone, tell them. If you respect a person, tell him. If you forgive her, tell her. Don't assume the other person knows how you feel, and don't leave them wondering, even in a family. They aren't mind readers. Learn your family's love languages and speak those. Speak those often. Okay, there's a book, some of you have read this, others haven't, The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. And it's simple, but it's a powerful concept about that basically every person, every one of us in this room, we have one or two primary ways out of those 5 where we feel most loved by someone else. Okay? And so, and everyone feels love differently. And I'll just, you can write these down if you want, but basically the 5 different love languages. First one is words of affirmation. Okay? Actions don't always speak louder than words for those whose love language is words of affirmation. Okay? These are words that affirm. They build up. They're verbal lifter-uppers. People who score high in this feel most loved when somebody tells them something nice, when somebody affirms them, when somebody lifts them up. I love you. You're the best. You look so good today. You're beautiful no matter what anyone else says. I'm just kidding. I mean, those kinds of things make a person feel loved, okay? It's those who have that love language. The effects of words that are withheld or negative are devastating to that person. It's like it's a double negative kind of a thing. Harsh words towards a person who feels love with words of affirmation. Man, I mean, it's like a bomb goes off in that relationship. They feel like, oh, you don't like me, you hate me, that kind of stuff. The next one is quality time. If you score high in this area, then full undivided attention means to you more than anything else. You feel most loved when your spouse or friend or parent spends meaningful time with you. Getting off work on time, regular date nights, no shopping, time to talk, no distractions. These things go much further than, great job, dear, I appreciate you, if quality time is your love language. Quality time in front of a football game doesn't count, unfortunately. I've tried to do that, and it doesn't count. And I understand that, though I wish it would. But anyway, quality time meaning no distractions. Okay? But if there are distractions, or you fail to keep your commitment, or you don't listen, those things are hurtful. The third one is receiving gifts. Forget quality time and buy me a diamond. All right? Actually, for a person who has this love language, it's not so much about the gift as much as what's behind it. Okay? The feeling, wow, they thought of me. They feel cared for. cards, flowers, a picture frame for the office, a new barbecue or HGTV, hey, whatever it might be. But those kinds of things make a person feel loved. You miss their birthday or anniversary, or you give some thoughtless gifts, and it could be disastrous for that person. Fourth, love language, acts of service. Doing things to lift a burden speaks love louder than anything else. You want someone with this gift to fall in love with you again, just say, let me do that for you. And it's like, oh, wow. And then do it, okay? But help around the house. Cook, clean, a special foot massage, wash the car, put the toilet seat down. Do something, to help out, lift the burden. And, but laziness, creating more work for them, says that they don't really matter. And this last one is physical touch. Cuddle on the couch, hug, hold hands. All the stuff, if you're married, that you did when you were dating. A couple of our kids, this is their love language as well. But neglect, distance, and abuse can be unforgivable or destructive. So it's so important to know our family well, to know their love language so we can communicate love to them. It doesn't do a whole lot of good to love them in the way that you feel loved, but they don't. But if we can retrain how we show love to those who are important to us, it can greatly improve communication and our relationships. Wendy's love languages are quality time and acts of service. I've received more accolades by simply pushing a vacuum or cleaning the fridge or taking her on a date than a month's worth of, I love you, you look great. And she's like, oh. Me, it's words of affirmation and about 3 others, right? Anyway, so do be quiet and listen. Don't be rude or rotten. Do learn to build up in how you communicate. We all need to improve. Imagine if we all did this. If we all, let's say we all picked one thing. All of us. We decide we're going to pick one thing that we'd heard today. And I'm going to work on that this week in my family. What's one thing? Maybe it's the do be quiet and listen because you just can't ever stop talking, okay? Do that. Maybe it's don't be rude or rotten. Maybe it's whatever it might be. Pick one thing this week and work on that and see if your family notices. Imagine if we all did this and then we said, okay, I'm starting to get this down. This is great. And then what happens is something starts to change in my heart and in the way that I believe and the way that I view my family because I'm working on this. Are you following that? And if we all did that and we all worked on this one thing and then it's like, all right, you know what? My behavior is changing. My relationship is changing. I'm going to now work on another thing to improve the way that I communicate with my family. And you'll see a difference happen. That's how to fight for your family. Let's stand.